Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Main, and today we're going to discuss the usability test results we received from the usability test over Killer Personality Podcast website. So, the goal of this website is to either bring new participants, new users to the Killer Personality Podcast that may just be looking for a new podcast to listen to and they've typed in podcast on Google, or to help listeners that already know about the Killer Personality Podcast and listen to it, give them more direction on who the people are that are actually talking to them daily on this podcast, or about how they decided to start this podcast, how to become a member, anything that anyone would want to know to keep up with this podcast. So that is the whole goal of this website. Now, whenever we're looking at a usability test, we had two types of tests. So you want to have quantitative and a qualitative test. Quantitative is going to look at your numerical data, and for ours, we did measures of time over navigation throughout the website. And for qualitative testing, this is going to be some kind of quality that's helping to explain quantitative data. So we did a questionnaire that's based off of the two quantitative tests. So for our quantitative test, we had two tests for navigation. There was the findability and completion rate test, and then the time to find test. Now both of these came from Zero, where they looked at 10 metrics for testing website navigation. So I thought that these would be great tests to use for quantitative data. So the findability completion is actually just having task and can the user or the participant find the task. They get a 0 if they can't, or a 1 if they can find it. The time to find test is actually given those same tasks and how long it takes the participant to find that test or task. So we had 8 questions or tasks that the participants went through. We had 4 participants that went through this usability test. So the first 4 questions are the podcast. For the podcast, is the podcast reviewing Vanna Knox is in which season and episode number? What is the highest membership level a user can sign up for? If a user wants to become a member, can you find how they are to sign up? Is there a link that the user can go to? And if the user wants to know the profession of Destiny, where do they go, and can you identify her profession? We then had, what Enneagram number does the investigator refer to? What is the topic of each season of Killer Personality Podcast? Will a member receive a gift every 6 months? If so, which membership level will they be in? And the last question or task was the challenger is in which Enneagram type. We then had a qualitative test, and we only did one test for this. We did a 5-question questionnaire, and those questions were based off of the quantitative test. So the first question was, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being difficult, how easily were you able to navigate the site to find each task for the findability completion rate? Did you feel as if you were able to navigate well to each task when working through the time to find test? If not, what were some issues you experienced? Overall, did you feel the navigability was laid out well throughout the site and easy to use? How did you feel about the overall look of the site? Did you find this site easily to look at visually? And then did you notice anything not working properly on the site? All right, so for our results for quantitative on that first test, the findability completion, for the first question, we actually saw a 100% completion, meaning that every participant was able to find this first task. So everyone got a 1, as they either were given a 0 or a 1, they got a 1. For question number 2, each participant also found this task. So this also got a 100% completion or a 1 as well. The same for 3 and for 4. All participants were able to find both task 3 and 4. So there was no one that could not complete that task. And we also saw that for task 5, 6, 7, and 8. So each of these tasks were all found. Each participant found every single task, and that was actually really great news for us that each task was able to be found throughout the website. Now, with time to find, we did have some varying averages, so we thought to base this on averages after taking everybody's times. We just wanted to find that average time it took for these participants to find these tasks. So this first one took about the longest time. The average time was 35.40 seconds between um, all participants. For that second task, it took an average time of about 9.65 seconds. For number three, that third task, it took an average of 6.85 seconds for the participants to find. Number four, it took the participants an average of 21.24 seconds, so that one did take a little bit longer. Number five task, the average time it took participants to find was 10.46 seconds. Number six, it took the participants an average of 21.43 seconds, so that one did take a little bit longer as well. Number seven, that took an average of 11.73 seconds. And then number eight, that task took an average of 9.67 seconds. And so I also created this in a table as well with the quantitative questions graphing against those seconds. So it was actually in milliseconds that we were doing this. And as you can see, it did take that first task the longest amount of time to find, and then task 4 and 6 also took the greatest amount of time as well. For our qualitative results, for this first task, first question on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being difficult, how easily were you able to navigate? Every person who participated in this usability test gave this question a 5, meaning they were easily able to find each task on the site. Now, for question 2, did you feel as if you were able to navigate well to each task when working through that time to find test? If not, what were some issues you experienced? Each participant answered this question by saying they were able to navigate to each task well when working through the time to find test. Overall, did you feel the navigability was laid out well throughout the site and easy to use? So each participant answered this question by saying they thought the site's navigability was laid out well. How did you feel about the overall look of the site? Did you feel the site was easy to look at visually? So the overall consensus was that the site was easy to look at, but the site was kind of boring in that it needed something extra to it. So that's something that I am working on, is adding a little bit extra visually to the site so it's not as boring as the participants felt that it was. And then did you notice anything not working properly on the site? So every participant said that there was nothing on the site that they noticed did not work properly. They felt that all the links worked properly, and so that was very good news to hear. Overall, I feel that the usability test was great because it allowed us to see if everything on the site was working well, how the navigability was going through the site. Each person was able to find every task that they were asked to find. It did take some longer than others, and some they did not take as long. So it just depends on the person that is on the site at the time as to how long it's going to take them. I think the only criticism was how the site just felt kind of plain, and so that is something that I'm taking into consideration while going through revisions of the site. So yeah, I think overall that this usability test went very well for the site.